During the Great Depression, meals were not about luxury, they were about survival, ingenuity, and making something from nothing. Families across America stretched every penny, every scrap, and every ingredient to create dishes that filled bellies and warmed hearts. Today, many of those recipes have been forgotten, but they tell a powerful story of resilience, creativity, and community. In this video, we will explore 25 lost recipes from the Great Depression meals that kept families going through one of the hardest chapters in American history. The recipes: 1. Hoover Stew, a famous dish named after President Herbert Hoover, often unfairly blamed for the Depression. This stew used whatever pasta, canned tomatoes, hot dogs, and beans were available. It was filling, cheap, and could be stretched to feed many mouths. Imagine a pot simmering with elbow macaroni, the temps of tomatoes, and the salty bite of sliced hot dogs. It was not gourmet, but it kept families nourished. 2. Cornbread and milk. Sometimes dinner was nothing more than a piece of day-old cornbread crumbled into a bowl with cold milk poured over it. It was simple, fast, and required no extra cooking fuel. Children often ate it as both breakfast and supper. The texture was soft, mushy, and comforting, proof that even the humblest ingredients could satisfy. 3. Potato pancakes. Potatoes were cheap, versatile, and filling. Families grated them, mixed them with flour and onion, and fried them into crispy cakes. The sizzle in the pan, the golden crust, and the savory aroma made this Depression staple feel like a treat, even when it was just shredded potatoes. 4. Vinegar pie. With lemons scarce and expensive, resourceful homemakers turned to vinegar to mimic the tart flavor in pies. Mixed with sugar, eggs, and butter, it baked into a surprisingly tasty dessert that resembled lemon custard. The pie was tangy, sweet, and a reminder of how creativity turned scarcity into comfort. 5. Dandelion green salad. When vegetables were too costly, families foraged. Dandelion greens, abundant and free, were often picked fresh from yards and fields. Dressed with vinegar or bacon grease, they provided vital nutrients. It was food straight from the ground, bitter, earthy, but life-sustaining. 6. Mock apple pie, perhaps the most famous Depression dessert. It's made with Ritz crackers, sugar, cinnamon, and lemon juice. It mimicked the taste and texture of apple pie without a single apple. The magic was in the spices and the crunch, fooling even skeptical eaters. 7. Navy bean soup. Beans were cheap protein, simmered for hours with onions, carrots, and sometimes a ham bone if available. They turned into a thick, hearty soup. The aroma filled kitchens, the broth warmed cold nights, and every spoonful stretched pennies further. Onion sandwiches, when meat was unaffordable. Sandwiches were made with raw onion slices, butter, and bread. Strong, tear-inducing, and pungent, it was not a delicacy, but it filled the stomach. Sometimes salt or vinegar was added to cut the bite. 9. Cabbage soup. Cabbage was cheap, long-lasting, and versatile. It was boiled into soups with potatoes, carrots, or whatever scraps were available. A steaming bowl of cabbage soup was both hearty and humble, keeping families warm on the leanest days. 10. Depression cake. Wacky cake. This cake used no eggs, butter, or milk. Instead, it relied on vinegar, oil, and baking soda for lift. It was moist, chocolatey, and surprisingly delicious. So much so that it remains popular today. 11. Fried cabbage and noodles. Haluski, a dish with Eastern European roots, made from fried cabbage, onions, and egg noodles in butter or lard. It was cheap but filling, and the aroma of sizzling cabbage in a skillet became a familiar scent in many homes. 12. Cornmeal mush. Cornmeal was inexpensive and versatile. Families cooked it into a thick porridge for breakfast or let it set, sliced it, and fried it for dinner. The crispy edges and creamy center made it a Depression favorite. 13. Peanut butter bread, a recipe from Canadian Depression cookbooks, but popular in the US too. Peanut butter was mixed into bread dough, adding protein and flavor without expensive butter or eggs. The bread was dense, nutty, and perfect with a cup of coffee. 14. Liver and onions. Organ meats were much cheaper than steak or roasts. Liver fried with onions became a staple source of iron and protein. It was not everyone's favorite, but it was nourishing when meat was scarce. 15. Boiled cabbage with hot dogs. Cheap hot dogs were boiled with chopped cabbage, creating a one-pot meal. The salty meat flavored the cabbage, and together they stretched to feed a family. The smell was strong, but the dish was affordable and filling. 16. Oatmeal pancakes. Oats were inexpensive, and when ground or mixed with flour, they became hearty pancakes. Served with syrup or just a sprinkle of sugar, they provided energy for long days. 17. Molasses cookies. Molasses was cheaper than refined sugar. Homemakers used it to sweeten cookies, bread, and cakes. The deep, rich flavor gave these cookies a comforting taste that children loved. 18. Rabbit stew. For families in rural areas, hunting supplemented food supplies. Rabbit was a common protein source. Stewed with potatoes, carrots, and onions, it created a tender, flavorful dish. 19. Prune pudding. Dried prunes were affordable and long-lasting. Boiled with sugar and thickened, they became a sweet pudding dessert. It was chewy, sticky, and surprisingly beloved. Corn chowder. Canned or fresh corn was cooked with potatoes, onions, and milk to create a creamy chowder. It was simple but hearty, stretching a few ingredients into a filling meal. 21. Turnip hash. Turnips were cheap root vegetables. Chopped and fried with potatoes, onions, or scraps of meat, they became a rustic hash that could be eaten any time of day. 22. Grape nuts. Custard. Grape nuts cereal, introduced in the late 1800s, was baked into custard with milk, eggs, and sugar. The cereal softened into a nutty base, creating a beloved Depression dessert. Stale bread was never wasted. Cubes were soaked in milk, sugar, and spices, then baked into a soft, custardy pudding. It turned leftovers into comfort food. 24. Carrot marmalade with citrus. Expensive. Carrots were boiled with sugar and sometimes a bit of lemon peel to create a bright, sweet spread that mimicked marmalade. It was spread on bread or biscuits and gave the illusion of luxury. 25. Hot milk cake. This cake used fewer eggs and butter than most desserts, relying on hot milk to create a tender crumb. It was a Depression favorite for Sunday dinners and celebrations, proving that even in hard times, sweetness could be found. The Great Depression was not just about struggle, it was about resilience. These recipes, humble as they were, tell the story of families who refused to give up. They foraged, they stretched, they substituted, and they found ways to make meals feel like home, even in the hardest times. Today, revisiting these dishes is more than nostalgia, it is a reminder of the creativity and strength that carried a generation through. So the next time you bite into a slice of vinegar pie or spoon up a bowl of bean soup, remember, these are not just recipes. They're history served on a plate.